All right. So as we transition into week 4, let me tell you that week 3 in working with your database is going to inform as you move forward because you're going to be using this data pretty much at least 2 or 3 of the records. I'm not going to actually come back here too often. So if Airtable is in any way telling you that you don't have enough access or storage or something, we're pretty good. But I will give Airtable a couple of uh, compliments because, to be clear, it is a database. It looks like a spreadsheet, but it is not. So as I look through this particular example, one thing we really wanted to focus on is some sort of grouping concepts. And we'll get in more into this in the next couple of weeks. You can see here that it will actually tell you when there's any repetition. And this is also, by the way, true of Excel, but it's a little fancier. It gets something here like it recognizes this as a number. So that's pretty nice. Let me see if I can find another example because that's a database, and I probably have given this feedback that really isn't going to lend itself to too much analysis and qualitative work. I'll just try one at random, see where we're at. One of the bigger goals in terms of, here we go, art. Here's a good example right here. So it's starting to notice that there's more than one things that are called line of cut on paper. So this kind of a grouping concept is extremely important. It's the first thing you can really do in terms of information architecture is to start to see these patterns. That's why last week was called patterns. And the great thing about Airtable is it actually recognizes it for you. And if you don't have a lot of patterns, you're going to want to invent as many as you can. And as I said, that will be a subject moving forward. The other thing that we talked about a bit and is going to be a big deal this week is hierarchy. What is the most important thing? So in this case, this is about art. Is it the artist? Maybe. Bill Woodrow's a great artist. Actually, I'm a fan of his. Or is it the image, which I'm not seeing here, but art tends to really rely upon images, so that the image could be the most important thing about your record. And then the supporting is the artist, maybe the year, maybe the medium. I'm just pointing that out as these are possibilities, and we're going to explore those this week in what I hope is either a new or completely different way of thinking about HTML. So let's go to week 4. So right now, in fact, let's go to Canvas, even better. So week 4 is about information. So right now, if we go here to modules, go to week 3 pattern. Week 4 is markup. Okay, so quick guide. This is something that's useful, I hope. If you look here, we're moving our way up. Pretty amazing, actually. We've only spent 4 weeks, but we've gotten data. We have begun to really think about patterns, so that's the work you did last week. What we're going to do now is we're going to put ourselves into the realm of information. And I hope you feel like it's an accomplishment, but you're going to be surprised at the method of accomplishing this. I hope. So markup. Markup is actually information. So markup HTML, hypertext markup language. Markup is intended to give meaning to a piece of information or data. And so that's what you're going to do. And how are you going to do it? You're going to, first of all, you're going to read through the module, which I do my best to explain exactly how and why you create structures and why is HTML so important, especially this word, semantic HTML. Semantic HTML to me can only be created by people. That also includes this HTML5, if you've ever heard of it. HTML5 is just a slightly more expanded language to talk about what things are, rather than necessarily using it to display things. So that's the biggest trick for this week. Our HTML is not meant to be looked at by a human, and rendered in a browser. I know it's going to be tough. I'll just say it again. It is not meant to be looked at. It is meant to convey what your information is to another computer. And because most information is actually read by computers more than people, you are actually jumping the gun on making something actually into information if a computer can read it. What we're not interested in is design. And that's the point. That's all that CSS does, which we are not going to talk about at all, is what does it look like? Because we don't care what it looks like. We just care what is it structurally. And to do that, we've got a bunch of exercises. Also, we've got a brand new tool we're going to use, which is JS Fiddle. So right now, make sure you read these. I try to tend to both the video and the module and this to over-explain. Forgive me. We're also, many of you are going to be happy to see references here to some of the seminal concepts. I'm not sure why my thing isn't letting me zoom in. There we go, force reload. Some of the key concepts, one of which is called atomic design. It's pretty common now, but atomic design is really just a concept for designers on how structural and semantic markup is useful to designers. So it's basically trying to teach them it's more than what it looks like. There's also some terrific stuff here. This is a Daniel Mall article about why they succeeded beyond their goals, because they really focused on the actual markup of HTML, which got them to understand and see patterns that they couldn't normally see when they were looking at design. And then, this is just some people, the evolution of web design is just another idea that the look and feel changes, but the content actually doesn't. And same thing here, that semantics really are kind of the coolest way if you're interested in having your information to be found. How are you going to learn HTML? Well, you're going to start with a little primer here. These are the words, and that's all they are. They're words. So you should be able to read them and understand them. Most of these might be a little arcane. Area, field set. If you're not familiar with it, those things probably aren't going to be ones you use. The ones that I emphasize are the ones that are structural and hierarchical. So make sure that you check, and I'm talking here. H1, H2, H3 is pretty much what I'm really looking for. What data in your table is your H1? What's your H2? And boy, if you have an H3, we'll talk about that. So hierarchy, and then structures to group things together, such as one of the fabulous ones is like article, section, aside. That's how you take a record and you give it some context by saying, hey, this is a section, or this is a header of a section. These are all decisions which I hope you realize are ones you can make as an information architect, even though they are in quote-unquote code. And I mark up my perfume data, which is if you're really worried, you can start with that as a template if you want. And of course, the idea is to share your link publicly. Make sure you're using the anyone can see link, because there's nothing private about what you're doing. And share your link to JS Fiddle, and we'll take a look at your markup just like we did your data and give you feedback. And for anyone doing music, this is just an example of how the visualization doesn't really matter. It just is about, hey, there's tables, there's groupings, there's different views, let's call it, of everything. And we're going to get into a little more of those views in week 6. But right now, just the idea, don't be too fooled by views, because these are just for humans to see. The actual markup might be identical amongst these, and it should be. The structures don't change, the view does. Lot to take in for this week, I get it, but remember, and you can also say, hey, what's the deal? Why are we doing this? So I know it's a long explanation for this week, but I do hope these help. Please share early and often. Thanks.